Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Macabre Live. It's been a while. Um, yeah, I just haven't had anyone. No one has dared enter the ring. Um, I'm still getting comments on that. On the Reject Modernity video. Just dudes malding, like hardcore, about like, dude, the dresses are ruining my masculinity. But then I had like, hey man, do you want to like hash this out on stream? And they're like, no. I'm a victim. Um, yeah, it's so funny because like it just really reminds me of like that the whole like 2016 2017 arc where you had like all like these conservative cringe lords being like, the lefties won't debate us, and then finally they were like, well, fine, fuck it, like, do you wanna debate? And they're like, no, and then like, and you just realize how cowardly they were. Like, I'll hear anyone out. Like, I feel like I've had my bad performances. The Rich Cooper one, of course. Um, there have been some where I think I've interrupted too many times, where I've been a bit too aggressive. I should have like leaned back a bit. But for the most part, I think like I'm much more vitriolic on Twitter and YouTube comments than I am in these calls. I feel like I'm pretty even keeled in these calls. Just like, let's just talk it out. Because I do. It's like if someone actually comes on, even if they have just like absolutely atrocious views, if they come on, at least like, at least they had the balls to do it. At least they have conviction, you know. That's kind of what bugs me is I feel like a lot of the guys who kind of like regurgitate these views, I almost feel like they don't actually believe it themselves. That's why they won't like come on and like discuss them, because they know that if you put them under even the most like even if you put them under the most basic scrutiny, they will fall apart. And they kind of know that in the back of their head, but they don't want to believe that. It's that cognitive dissonance. They don't want to have to deal with that, which is like, I'm not going to defend, but I understand. Like, I remember being that way when I was like, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Like, I actually didn't like seeking out media that proved me wrong, even if I knew objectively it was out there. But yeah, sorry, it's been a bit. Yeah, good point, Book. The only problem with that is that, like, a lot of people have mentioned that. It's like, well, I'm better in text. The problem with that is that it often leads to just, like, either gish galloping or sort of, like, diverting from the point. Like, someone can easily say, like, they can purposely take you out of context or, like, misconstrue what you were saying just to kind of, like, divert the issue. And then you try to get it back on track, but through text, it just takes so long. Where the debate, if someone's doing that, you can call it out, or like people watching can kind of see, oh, okay, this is what this person's doing. Yeah. But yes, we have a returning caller. This gentleman was actually the person who called in, or was going to call in for the very first live stream on this channel, but they did not appear. But then they ended up coming in a while. I think it was like a week or two later, and we talked about transgender people, quote unquote, demanding pronoun use. I don't know if that's what's going to be the topic of today. It might be. I'll kind of like allow him to sort of like dictate what we talk about. But yeah, let's check it out. Let me give him a ring. Let's see if he's good to go. Oh, I started working at a dog shelter, or an animal adoption shelter. Yeah, you're a good point, Book. It is hard. That's why it's good to have sort of like, you have to be able to sort of like, and I've had this issue before where I've almost had to like, even like through text, I've had to like kind of like step away and then come back like a day later. Like, because if I try responding right away, it's like, it's going to get ugly. Okay, he responded. He is good to go. I'm going to call him right now. Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
okay, hi.
Chibu?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Am I pronouncing that correctly? I feel like that's how I pronounced it last time. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah,
Yes? Oh, hang on. We might have some connection issues. Hello? Chibu? We might be having some trouble. Just give us a second. Man, Discord's always fucking our shit up. Every time. Every time. Man. Da 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 da. Oh, is he trying to talk but he can't? No. Oh, hang on. Chibu? I can your ring is like lighting up, but I can't hear anything. Yeah, see, I can see your ring lighting up, but I can't hear anything. Are you using? Is the microphone selected properly? Here, let me message him. See if we can. Interesting. He can hear me, but I can hear. Try messing with the mic settings in the Discord settings. You can hear me, but I cannot hear you. Yeah, try messing with the mic settings, I guess. Or here, what? Hang on, let's hang up the call, and then I'll call you right back. Man, this never goes smoothly. Hello?
Hello?
Ah, there we go. Now we can hear you. Took a second.
How you been, man?
I've been good. I was telling people I started working at a dog adoption, or it's cats too, but I mostly work in the dog section. A dog adoption center, which is very fun. I find it very rewarding. How about you, Chibu? What have you been up to?
Well, I got admitted to college, so that was pretty awesome. Going to read comp sci. So that's exciting.
What is that? Read comp
Just
sci?
Yeah, just trying to finish up 12th grade calculus, and I mean AP courses are so hard, but like, yeah, I guess that's that.
Based. What do you know what your major is?
Computer science.
Oh,
That's
based.
like my major. Yeah.
You can make fucking bank. And if you love it, that's
Yep.
also a plus too. All right, cool. Yeah, well, thank you for coming back on. We kind of like an update to update people. So we had our chat a couple, I want to say like maybe like a month ago. It's been a while. And then you kind of pop back into the comments on the Reject Modernity video, and then I was like, hey, if you want to come back on, and you kind of mentioned in the comments, you were kind of like, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of my performance in that sort of discussion.
Yeah. Honestly,
yeah.
I was acting like an idiot, to be honest, but yeah.
Yeah, and I was telling people before, I've had that, like my Rich Cooper, it's still up, it's unlisted, but it's still up just because, like, I don't want to be that much of a bitch, but, like, oh man, does it suck. I hate my performance in that. But it happens, everyone has those. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess I'll give the floor to you. So our last discussion, it was talking about, it kind of started off mostly talking about trans people, quote unquote, demanding pronoun use, and then it kind of segued into sort of like just preferred pronouns in general. So I'm thinking, do you want to start off by sort of maybe curtailing or sort of trying to express better your stance on preferred pronouns, trans people pronouns, etc.?
I mean, you can everyone is entitled to their own opinion about themselves and your own opinion in general. Like you can do whatever you want, and that's fine. Like you're allowed to do that, but at the end of the day, pronouns are preferential, or sorry, not preferential,
I agree.
referential.
Oh, sorry, never mind.
You Yeah, you can't choose pronouns. I mean, it's pronouns are used to refer to a person. Regardless of how you view yourself, there are certain things that make you what you are, certain things that you can't alienate. So that's what pronouns are based off of, those certain things, which would be your biological sex that you can't alienate. So you can choose your pronouns, that's fine. But at the same in that same vein, I can choose whether to use those pronouns or not.
Yeah. Well, so that kind of brings it back to sort of like the common courtesy argument, right? Like if a person comes up to you and is like, "Hey, I know most people by looking at me would think that my pronouns were he, him, but if I would like you to refer to me as she, her." Um, Now you are correct in the sense that like you as a person um, don't have to do that. Like
Okay.
the metaphor I used last time was like, if an old lady's coming into the doorway or something, you don't have to hold the door open for her. Yeah, you don't have to. Like no one's forcing you to. No one's like putting a gun to your head.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
if you make that decision and then people call you out and it's like, hey, that's really cringe, or like that's really like 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 bitchy of you. Um, yeah, I mean that's kind of like what my stance is. Like I'm not saying that like I think the government should be like you know like enforce the pronouns, but I'm simply saying like yeah, you don't have to respect someone's preferred pronouns, but if you don't, you're just people aren't gonna hang out with you because you seem like a dick.
But see, the thing is that quote unquote common courtesy you're asking me to engage in is more or less a logical fallacy. You're asking me to do something that's illogical. It doesn't make any logical sense. So why would I do that?
Okay, so it's not necessarily that the argument is it's about free choice. Like we both agree that you as a person have like again, it's like whether or not you choose to respect someone's preferred pronouns and how people decide to see you because of that. That is up to you. Let's say like yeah, like that's I agree with that. Like
Yeah, I mean,
you're
I
free
mean,
to.
you
Oh, go ahead.
you can, yeah, you can, I can, you can choose your own pronouns. That's fine, and I can choose my own. I can choose whether or not to abide by those pronouns, right? And then it's up to you to respond however you may respond. Like you can respond by calling me an asshole or saying that I'm insensitive and this and that. That's fine. But you can also realize that pronouns are made for reference. They weren't made so you can pick and choose. They were made to refer to you based off of biology. So you can also realize that and realize, well, he doesn't want to use the pronouns. That's fine. He's just a person. That's it.
Sure.
It's
Okay,
his
so
choice.
now we're getting back to the argument. So we've kind of like covered that ground. I think we're good about common courtesy. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can choose to do it, and I can choose to call you a dick for not doing it. So we're past that. So now we're on to your reasoning as to why you would not respect. So like I would surmise that like if an old lady was like walking into a door, you would hold the door open for them as a common courtesy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because okay, but in this case, the reason you will not extend that to trans people's preferred pronouns is because you find that them doing so is sort of if you were to do so, that would be engaging in some sort of logical illogical act.
Illogicality. Look,
Logical.
it's more like what it's more like is it's more like an old lady is walking into a store, and let's say the store has sliding doors. The doors slide open and she's standing in front of the store, in front of the door that's now open, and then she turns around to me and is like, could you help me open the door? Like, I can choose to go along and be like, sure, and open the imaginary door, and she proceeds to walk in. Or I can just be like, there's no door there, and keep going, which is the reality of the matter. There's no door there. It's the exact same thing. You can come up to me. in this case, the trans person would be the old lady and be like, could you refer to me by my chosen pronouns? The pronouns would equate to the non-existent door, right? The preferred pronouns, and I can either call her by her pronouns, right, or call the trans person by their pronouns, and we can go our separate ways, or I can be like, pronouns are referential, and you don't
Yeah.
actually get to choose your pronouns, and then I can walk away, which
Yeah.
would
So
just be stating the reality.
yeah. So we've got. Well, so we've gotten past that whether or not you have to. Again, you don't have to. Like no. Again, no one's
No, you
putting a
don't have
gun
to
in it.
do
But
anything.
yeah. So now we're talking about is your reasoning as to why you would not do so, because you're. It's
Yeah,
not
and I'm
just the.
saying,
It's not just that you're saying I wouldn't do it because people are forcing me. It's that you're saying I'm not doing this because I consider this illogical. And so now we're discussing why do you find it illogical? So in your
yes,
view, it's illogical because when the reason that we use she, him, or sorry, he, him, or she, her pronouns towards a particular person, that is to denote their biological makeup, and that is like that's just it. Just like
that's
if
to refer to them based off of their biological makeup.
okay, perfect. So now let's dissect that. So the
Okay.
issue and the reason I don't, and we kind of went over this a lot. I guess we can retread it, but the reason I don't think this makes any sense whatsoever is that when we're discussing pronouns, usually, so like when you like look at someone on the street, or if you meet someone in public or in a classroom, um, in those cases, you can only surmise what their pronouns might be or what their preferred pronouns would be based off how they look, correct? Like you can't
Okay.
I
Yes.
can't I can't look at a person and know their biological makeup.
I mean, most of the time you can, but sure.
Well, yeah, but what does that matter? What does it matter that most of the time you can? So,
I mean, most of the time you can look at someone's facial bone structure and your general bone structure, and you can tell that's a man.
yeah,
I mean,
but like as
regardless
you
of their gender expression.
yeah, but again I'm confused like but so what? So for example, if I met someone and they looked like I actually had this situation when I was in high school. I met a
Okay.
person who I thought was a boy. Like based on their hair, their look, I thought that person was a man, like a man, or and I referred to them as, oh hey, yeah, the next runner is him, and then the kid was like, actually, sorry, I'm a girl, and I go and so oh okay, you go by she. So yeah, so what? So in that case, what should I have done? Should I have said, I don't care because I perceive you as someone with he, him pronouns, I'm going to continue to call you as such? Or would I just now say, oh, my apologies, and then refer to that person as she and her?
Well, I mean, if you were the thing is, if it was like a stranger, you wouldn't. It would be pretty stupid and cringe. Like, let's face it, it would be pretty cringe to go out of your way and be like, "Oh no, you're a guy. I'm gonna call you he." Like, nobody cares, dude. Right? It's just be
But
like,
isn't
if
but
she,
isn't that
if the person says if the person says you're a girl, you call them she and you walk away. I mean, it's not. It's really
wait?
not that
Oh,
serious.
wait, hang on. Wait, can you say that what you just said again?
If in the case that it's a stranger, where no, where no like it's really not that serious. I mean, obviously when it comes to pronouns, look, generally when it comes to fucking I'm confusing myself. When it comes to like in that specific case where it was just where the person said, "Oh, excuse me, I'm a girl." Okay, you could have looked at the person and been like and been like, "You look like a guy." But if the person says you're a girl and they may be a girl, then you could just be like, "Okay, sorry," and walk away.
But what proof? What proof do I have that that person was telling me the truth? How did I know that that person actually was a biological female if when I looked at them they looked like a biological male?
Well, I mean, if obviously someone overtly looks like a male, then you'll know that you're a male. And if they come and say that you're a girl, it's just like, I'm pretty sure you're a boy, but okay. And then you can walk
Yes.
away.
So in that
Like
case, so in that
you
case,
wouldn't.
with that person,
Okay.
should I have just said? So just to be clear, this person was.
Hmm.
I mean, well, actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that. This person, I assume, was a biological female because they said they were. But I actually had no. I actually
Okay.
have no idea. They said they were. Like, actually, I'm a girl, so my pronouns are she and her. Even though when I looked at them, I was like, oh well, this person's
Okay.
pronouns are clearly he and him because they look like that. So yeah, so why shouldn't I have when that person said, actually, I'm a girl, my pronouns are she and her, why shouldn't I have said, well, I don't care what you say. I'm assigning you pronouns based on how you look in my eyes. So in
I
that
never
case,
said that you. I never said that you should tell anyone that you don't care and you're assigning them pronouns. In
well,
that specific
hang on.
case,
So,
that's
well,
what.
real quick, I just to revisit our last conversation, the class. So we had that whole thing with the classroom example where you said,
Yeah, that was stupid on my part.
okay, so you disavow that.
Yeah, like
Okay,
there's no need to like call someone out in front of the class. Just be like, okay, cool, yeah, whatever, and just keep going. Like it's not that serious. In that specific case, it's not that serious.
but
Like there's no need to act a fool. Like just to call one person out, that's crazy. Just
yeah, but
like leave it and keep going.
But when we're talking about like pronoun usage, it's always individual cases. So for example, like when we're talking about trans people, they tell other people like, "Oh, hey, actually my pronouns are she and her or he and him." So in
Yeah,
that case, I would like personally I would go with, and I think it kind of sounded like you agree that in the case of a trans person says that to you is like, okay, it's like whether or not I mean, we can have that whole discussion. Whether or not you even like acknowledge that this person act like being transgender is a thing, or even if you think it is like a mass delusion, and you think
okay,
these people are like degenerate perverts, like even if you were to think that,
okay. Never said that.
no, 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 no,
Okay.
no. I'm not saying you were saying. I'm saying like
I know, I
hypothetically.
know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay, yeah. So hypothetically, even if a person did say that,
Hmm.
in that case, you and I would agree that, like, hey, in that case, it's the best thing you can do and not only for like, and even if you don't respect the person, the best thing you can
Hmm.
do to just sort of like mitigate confusion and risk of harm
Exactly.
and any sort
Mitigate
of
confusion.
and any sort of tension is to just use
Hmm.
whatever pronouns they ask you to use, right?
Exactly. Look, when it comes to most of the time, when it comes to like face-to-face interactions where you have to refer to a transgender person as in the third person, like when you have to describe a transgender person to an audience or someone else, it's unless you're like trying to make like an article about them or you're explaining an article or something, like if it's like a class or like a comedy show or some shit and you have to be like the woman over there, of course you'd use woman she just to avoid general confusion and to avoid like someone getting up in the middle of the class and then there being a giant debacle. But I mean when you're writing like for instance an editorial and you have to like describe a transgender person,
Hmm.
of course you have to be like the biological man, right? He because you can't change your pronouns. That changing your pronouns is a that's an individual decision. That's a personal decision.
I
Me
agree.
and the rest of society, we don't have to engage in that. It's
Okay,
just
hang
that
on.
society.
Chibu, real quick,
Okay.
sorry, because we're going. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we're kind of again we're going back to this thing of like whether or not society has to call these people by their preferred pronouns. We're already past that. We're already past that
Yeah. You,
argument
like you.
as to like, yeah, if you're a person and you like purposely like if a trans person comes up to you, it's like, hey, actually my pronouns are she and her, and you're like, well, I don't care. I'm gonna refer to you as he
It's
and
not about
him.
not caring. It's, I
Well, okay,
mean, it's
okay.
just that you.
For whatever reason, if a person says for whatever reason, I'm not going to respect that request and call you by the pronouns that I think should be assigned to you. We already passed that person has the right to do that. People will think they're a dick and they're a transphobe, but they have the right to do it. Like no one's gonna come and
Yeah,
like,
they're allowed to do it. Like,
yeah,
thank
no
you.
one's, yeah. But again, we're past that. Now we're
Mm-hmm.
talking like if that was just the issue, it's like, yeah, I mean, like if that was the whole thing, then we could just end this right now. It's like, yeah, you're allowed to do
Okay.
that, and we're allowed to call you an asshole for doing so. But
Okay.
then it gets to the, at least like in your case, you're saying
Mm-hmm.
you're justifying why you would do that in that case, because
Why I
in
would
your,
do.
or why you would not respect that person's request
Okay.
to call them by certain
Okay.
pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's what we're on right now. So to your point about saying, well, he and him pronouns, in your view, this is what you're saying, he and him pronouns are used to denote someone who is biologically male, and she and her pronouns are used to denote someone who is biologically female. So because of
Mm-hmm.
that, if someone comes up to me who looks as though, so like let's say a trans woman comes up, but this person in your eyes, despite the fact that they say they are a woman and they go by she her pronouns, this person to you looks like a biological man. So because of that, you will not engage in that illogical request and you will refer to them as he and him, correct?
Um. It's. I'm gonna say yes, but I just want to explain just a little bit on that. You say in my eyes, but that's implying that it's only me that sees that. What I'm looking at, I'm not looking at someone with some kind of like shaded over like crazy conservative lens where I've fed into some paranoia from Fox News or something. What I'm looking at, I'm literally just looking at your bone structure and your physique. That's
So
literally the two main indicators of whether a man is a man and a woman is a woman. Of course, this can be masked through various means, not exercising, hormone therapy, and this and that. And in that case, I usually just go off of your gender expression. That doesn't mean that that's what you biologically are. But I'm not gonna for a random stranger, I'm not gonna start prodding and prying the truth. Or maybe for like in that scenario where I have to like start asking if you're a man, like at that point I don't care enough to go up to you and start being like, but are you actually a woman? Though, are you actually a woman? You look like a woman, but you're actually. It's just like there's no need for that.
I 100% agree. But but the issue with that, what you just said, is that now I bring it back to
Hmm.
the example that I said, where if
Okay.
a person comes up to me and to like
Hmm.
it, and anyone who looks at this person would think, like again, like I'm going back to this example that actually happened to me in high school. Anyone who
Okay.
would make a passing glance at this person would think this person was a biological male based on how they look, how
Okay.
they dressed, how their hair, whatever. But then when I said, "Oh, yeah, he's up. It's his turn," and this person said, "Oh, actually, no, I'm a girl." Well, in that case, and again, we're not talking about someone who is transgender. We're talking about someone who just based on their look, again, like the majority of people would look at this person and say, and again, like just from their outward appearance, okay, this person looks as if they would be, and like you said, this person looks on average, like statistically, a biological male. So in that case, why shouldn't I say to that person, look, I know that you say that you are a girl, you're a biological female, and you might be. However, because all of us are looking at you and we think you look like a guy, a male, we're going to call you he and him. So why in that case should I not ignore that person's claim and just continue to call them as he and him?
Well, I mean, because in that situation, it would be awkward and it would be pretty fucking cringe, to be honest. Look, the thing
But
is,
isn't but isn't
let me
that
just
the
explain
case
on it a
for,
little.
well, real quick, but isn't that the case for like, again, going back, regardless of your view on trans people, isn't that the case literally with pretty much every single interaction in which a trans person would like request for you to use their preferred pronouns? Like if you were a teacher, then a student came up, it's like, hey, I know you may have he and him on your roster, but actually I go by she and her pronouns. So in that case, yeah, for the teacher, wouldn't it be cringe for that teacher to say, well, no, I'm going to refer to you as he and him and not just respect their request.
Well, I mean, if I was writing, then again, it goes right back to what I was saying. If I was like talking about the student, like let's say the student came up to the board and wrote an answer right on the board. If I was referring to the student, I'd say, I mean, and if the student presented like a girl, like a she her, dressed like a girl, makeup and whatever, I'd say just to avoid confusion and for everything to be nice and streamlined and on track, I'd use she her. I'd refer to the guy or the girl as she her. But if I was writing a school report for the child, I would use he him. I mean,
But
because
so
at the
why
end,
would you do that in an article but not to their face? Isn't that kind of cowardly?
no, that's not what it's about. When I write it in an article, I can iterate that this person is a it might is transgender, right? Is a transgender girl,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or identifies as a girl, but is a biological boy, is a biological male. And after, I can now iterate and therefore and from here forth will be using he him to refer to the person's name, right? I can do that
Well,
in an article,
well,
but when
no.
speaking to a class, it would be really confusing and pretty cringe to do that. But when
Yeah,
I'm
but
writing an article, I can easily do that
well, yeah,
to
but that
convey the facts as they are.
well, yeah, but like I mean, like I think that kind of sounds cowardly. But like aside from that, the issue with that is that in this case, so like
Hmm.
so this is sort of the issue that I run into a lot with people who sort of don't understand trans issues. They sort of like you've probably heard before, like I think like you've heard like J.K. Rowling and a bunch of other like transphobic idiots say it, like that like biological sex is real. Like you've heard like like people say that right when they're arguing against trans issues.
Uh, I mean, it is real, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing: not a single trans person denies that
Hmm.
biological sex is real because by definition, hang on, real
Actually,
quick, real quick, real quick.
okay, go ahead.
Because by definition, a trans person is
Hmm.
someone whose biological sex does not match up with their gender. So what trans
Your
people are
gender
saying,
expression.
it's we 100% agree that biological sex is real. However, in the
Hmm.
majority of cases, like you said, the biological sex of male matches up with someone who identifies their gender as a man. However, in some
Okay.
cases, there are biological males or biological females who identify as women or men. Those people are transgender people. So, yeah,
Uh,
so going back to it again, so like if I'm writing this article and I say, "Hey, this person, I'll use ContraPoints is a trans woman." When I say
okay.
that, what I am saying is that ContraPoints is a biological male who
Hmm.
identifies as female. And
Hmm.
because due the pronouns, if we're going off of someone's gender or as you said, gender expression, when I look at ContraPoints, that I see a woman. So I will refer to Contra as she, her. And that, I mean, I would just, even if she didn't look like a woman, I would request that because I would refer to them with she, her pronouns because they requested that. And I want to, respect that. But aside from that, is that if I look at Contra, okay, she looks like a woman. So I will refer to them as she and her. So it sounds so. We're kind of getting back to the original, like, sort of disagreement where you think that when we're talking about pronoun uses, we are determining the pronouns based on biological sex. And I believe in our last talk that I kind of like, and we can go through it again, but I think in our last talk I fundamentally disproved this idea that we assign pronoun usage based primarily solely or even primarily on biological sex. Because so just to kind of prove my point, to kind of go back to our last example, you are familiar with what an intersex person is.
Intersex people are people that are born with birth defects where they have both male and female reproductive organs.
Yeah, so in this case, they aren't necessarily biologically male or female. They are technically both biologically male and female, correct?
And you're outliers and you're born with birth defects. So, yeah.
So again, you kind of said this before about like, well, in most cases, that means absolutely nothing. That's like saying that left-handed people are less human than right-handed people because the vast
How?
majority, because you said the vast majority of people in our society are right-handed. So doesn't that make
No,
left-handed people less human?
no.
Wait, why
I
not?
have no clue what you just said or how that relates
So
to anything.
so
But that
let
was a
me
horrible analogy, to be honest.
no, it really wasn't.
Let me just
Wait, hang
let
on,
me just
Chibu, hang on. Let me just
okay.
explain it because you kind of called out my analogy, so let me just kind of defend it. So
All
what I'm
right.
saying is that you're saying that, well, because intersex people are very rare, to kind of like that.
No, I'm
That's kind of
saying
what
that
I'm saying. I don't even know what you're saying. Like, okay,
I'm saying
an intersex person, intersex people are rare compared to the general population. But what does
you're
that have? What does
misunderstanding
that
what
have
I'm
to do?
saying.
What does that have to do with anything?
What I'm saying is you're trying to justify why something should be done by telling me that there's a group of people that are literally like 1% of the US population, plus it's not, they don't occur because of some phenomena. They occur because it's a literal birth defect.
No,
Every
no,
human at one
Chibu.
point in the
What
womb
I'm
has, let me just finish it. Like,
No,
let me
Chibu, hang
just
on.
finish. All right.
Chibu, hang
Just
on.
this one.
Chibu, because you're
Bruh.
misunderstanding what I'm saying completely.
Okay.
I am
Let's go.
not trying. You're saying like, oh, you have to do something. What I am simply using intersex people to demonstrate is to put
Okay.
your argument is that we assign pronouns based on someone's biological sex. I fundamentally disagree with this. I think this is an absolutely stupid assertion. The reason I'm bringing up intersex people is to disprove this. So I asked
How?
you. Okay, so I'll do it right now. So
Okay.
you know what an intersex person is? Someone that is
Hmm.
both technically biologically male and biologically female.
Because of a birth defect, yes.
I don't see that has nothing to do with anything. But regardless,
I mean, it has
if
to be
I
stated like,
see, if I meet an intersex person, what pronouns do
okay.
I use to identify them as?
Well, usually they are intersex male or intersex female, depending on the doctor with which they're born. But
Wait, hang
I
on.
mean,
But they're both,
if they,
but they're intersex. They are both biologically male and biologically female. So how can I assign them he or she pronouns?
dude, literally the doctors that deliver the baby, they do that, and it goes like on your freaking birth certificate.
Yeah,
But even if
but so
most
what?
of the time,
That doesn't mean
most
doesn't mean anything. We're talking about someone who is biologically male and biologically female. And you're
okay,
saying that if someone is biologically male, I use he him pronouns. If someone is biologically female, I use she her pronouns. So when you meet an intersex person, what pronouns do you use to identify them as?
well, I mean, you look at them and you pretty much, I mean, know which pronouns to use based off of their gender
Based
expression
based off their gender expression or how they present themselves.
or their bone structure.
Okay, but that isn't necessarily based on biological sex.
No, I mean, no, I mean, in this new age, no.
Yeah, exactly. So we
Hmm.
live in a society. So
This new society.
here's the funny thing. When you're talking about the reason you're doing this is to limit confusion, I asked you in our last talk if you meet someone who comes up to you, they're wearing a dress, they have long hair, makeup, feminine bone structure, long toned, shaved legs, like great tits, nice ass, very
Just call him
voluptuous.
she.
Okay, wait, hang on. Whoa. But this person is biologically male.
Mm.
So why are you telling me
Well,
to
do I
lie?
know that?
Chibu, hang on. So why are you telling
All
me
right.
to lie? How do you have the audacity to tell me to lie and call this person who is a biological male she and her? Like, how dare you? try to
Uh,
demand that I lie. Like, isn't that illogical?
well, one thing I just want to say is that these questions are pretty leading and they're kind of funny, but I'll play along. And two is, I don't know if I know that you're a biological male because maybe you're a student at my high school or the university, right? And I've looked at your sheet and it's like this is a biological male. When I'm talking face to face with them, I'll I'll most likely be using he, him, right? And when I'm writing a report about him, I'll be using he, him, like after stating that at the beginning, of course, that you're a trans person and this and that. But when I'm
So
referring to them in a class or in a public setting, I'm trying to make reference to them to avoid confusion. I'll just be like she, her.
so here's a question. If you're let's say you're a teacher. So let's go back to this example. You're a teacher and you're having a one-on-one with a student. And this
Mm-hmm.
person looks like you've seen me on stream. And this person looks biologically male, broad shoulders, masculine features. They look like 100%, almost 100% of people virtually will look at this person and assume that they are a biological male. So I come into
Okay.
your office and we're having a chat and we're talking about that stuff. Under what context would you need then proceed to identify what my biology is? Like how would you at what point and under what context would you then ask me to confirm what my biological sex is so you can use the proper pronouns in a private conversation with me?
Well, I mean, if you're a student in my class, I already have that.
Wait, hang
Like,
on, wait, hang on, Chibu.
I already have that
Teachers
information.
teachers in a classroom do not have the biological records of every student, whether or not they are
Whether you're
like
male or female,
yes. Wait, hang on. What? I'm trying to think like do you I'm trying to think do you think a college professor they have 50 kids in their class and they all come in and they have the kids' names? Do you think that along with that roster, they also have the medical records of every single student that tells the
obviously,
teacher whether or not each student has XX or XY chromosomes?
obviously not the fucking medical records. All you need is
Yeah.
just literally M or F.
Again, I'm
It's
kind
it's
of
there.
yeah, but wait, hang on. But where does that M and F come from? Doesn't that come from the form that the student fills out themselves?
It's biology. I mean, unless you lied on the form,
Well,
I'm just
wait, hang on,
I'm
Chibu.
literally going to look at the form and go by what the form says.
Yeah, but what if the form was filled out by the student and that student identifies as a woman and they put down F?
Then I just go with what the form said. I mean, if I looked at you and you were that, unless I found out that you were a trans woman, then I'd be like, oh, so then you lied on the form.
But so this goes back to our question. I'm trying to
And I don't.
think of a scenario where let's say you have a student in your class and
Okay.
they look like to you a biological female. Everything about them is 100%. So in your again to go back to this scenario, you would refer to that person with their preferred pronouns of she and her. But if maybe they were walking out of class and for some reason they had their chromosomal records on them and it fell out of their backpack and you happen to pick it up and see that this person who you thought was a biological female actually is a biological male. And then from that point on, if that person comes up, it's like, hey, professor, here's my homework. You would, in that private conversation, just begin to just randomly refer to that person as with he, him pronouns because that is accurate based off of their chromosomal makeup.
Well, what you first of all, if I did in fact find out that you lied on your sheet, right on the sheet in front of me, it says female when you're actually male. I'd confront you on that first, and when you came to me to submit homework, I'll call you he, him because you are a male. Even if I've been calling you she, her, I had been lied to. I was under a different assumption, right?
Yeah,
I'd been
but
lied to against my own will. I was working with different information.
yeah, but again, Chiba, this goes back to sort of like the situation. In the vast majority of cases, like I'm trying to think of all the people in my life. I cannot say for outside of like a very few number of cases, I cannot say for sure what the chromosomal
Hmm.
makeup is of any single person I have met in my life. Like, for example, like I have my friend's boyfriend,
You're
TJ.
the
He's
one that
great.
gave me the hypothetical
No, Chiba.
about chromosomes.
The reason I'm asking this hypothetical is to put your like your sort of like ideological system to a test. And what it seems like is I'm asking very simple questions. Like I'm asking pretty like, oh, it's like what if in this scenario happened? How would you respond? And then you kind of give like very convoluted, confusing, very like multi-step like processes how you would go about doing it. When again,
I mean, don't you know how to interact with people?
if we go back and we're talking about just
Like what?
and if we go well now you're doing like the fake laugh thing, so it kind of makes you seem a bit like you kind of know that I'm right.
I mean, it's just like you're
So
going to. I say one thing and then you just take it and go to an extreme, and
well
then you want
no,
to just like
Chibo,
forget all the barriers and all the ways of interacting with people, and
Chibo,
just run with
I'm
only that. And it's
Chibo,
just
I'm
like, bruh.
Chibu, you said that we assign pronoun usage based on biological sex. I countered with a situation where,
That's how
hey,
pronouns
what about
are. Yes.
yes? But then I asked you, hey, an intersex person is both biologically male and biologically female. So what pronouns would you use to identify them with?
I would use they what they was express what their gender expression was. That's what I'd
But
go with, or what
why
they looked like.
But isn't that lying? Because if you refer to this person, an intersex person, with she her, well, that's illogical because this person is not a biological woman. They are both a biological man and biological woman. So wouldn't you referring to them with she her pronouns be going? Isn't that illogical? Isn't that going against your entire point? Shouldn't we make up a third pronoun usage for intersex people? We can call them it or that.
Uh, no, because intersex, like I said, exactly like I said, intersex people are a birth defect. You can't start making and changing things just because intersex people.
No,
And
hang on,
if
Chibu.
they,
No, Chibu, we're not. I'm not changing anything. I am just saying, in the context. Actually, I'm doing the exact opposite. If an intersex
Mhm.
person comes to me and says, like, "Hey, I go by she/her," and they present as a woman, and I'm like, "Well, based off our system, you are both a biological male and a biological female. Based off Chibu's system, I can't use he and him or she and her pronouns because you technically are not simply a biological male or a biological female. So maybe we should. So again, I'm asking, how should we refer to that
Mhm.
person? It seems like if you call this person an intersex person by either he, him, or she, her pronouns, you would be betraying your own system because you are making an exception in their case. It's like, okay, well, I'll use their gender expression to determine their pronouns. But you just said that we do not determine pronoun usage based on gender expression. We use biological sex. So, under your own ideology, we should refer to intersex people as something different because they are not solely biological male, which we use he and him, or biologically female, which we use she and her.
Uh, okay, so a very like long-winded, multi-layered question or whatever. What you fail to understand is that I never said that I would use biological. And just listen, because I don't like. Just let me get through the whole thing. I never said that I would use would just be like all the time. You have to show me your biological makeup before I can assign you a pronoun from my own choosing. No, it's like he him is what is paired with biological male, which is which is also what is paired with man, gender, boy, right? And then she her is what's paired with biological female, which is what is paired with um uh, woman, gender. They're all derived. I mean, the pronouns and the gender are both derived from the biology, which is inalienable. It's scientific fact. I
So
but
Chibu,
but when you
real quick, just
oh,
because I'm going to completely disprove this. Um, as I so even this, like, let's not even talk about trans people who have undergone HRT or surgery or anything like that, because that completely blows your point out of the water. However, let's just talk about someone who is rather androgynous. So, for example, when I was in high school, this
what's
person
androgynous skin?
it's someone who, like, you really can't tell just by looking at them what their gender expression is. Someone who, like, if you look at them, like, again, like that sort of example I used in high school, that person who I
Oh,
saw and looked like a biological male, and I assumed was, but actually they were a girl. However, in that case, it wasn't because this person had surgery or because they had undergone HRT. This person just looked, they just did not seem to look like the gender or sex that I thought they were. So
mm-hmm.
doesn't this example completely destroy your, because again, what you're saying is that you can look at a person and you can determine their biological sex. Am I correct?
Most of the time, you can look at a person and based off of their bones. Most of the time,
So,
very
well,
key. Most of the time,
but again, hang on,
you can
Chibu,
look at a person
but
and their
Chibu,
bone structure, and you can tell
but
that you're.
Chibu, we keep
Can tell.
going back to this sort of, like, you're kind of like, I don't want to say like you're kind of like bitching out, but like you're, like, every time you go to this, like, well, most of the time, but that completely
Well,
blows
obviously,
your,
generalizations are bad.
well, no, but every time you say, well, most of the time, you're completely destroying your own point, because when you say most of the time, you are admitting, without really saying it, you are admitting that there are cases where we will look at someone and their gender expression, or how we think they look, or what their sex might be based on their appearance, does not match up what their actual biological sex is. So in those cases,
Well,
what we're,
obviously, but the
yes,
exception
so,
doesn't make the rule.
well, no, it kind of does, because again,
What?
let me ask you this question: how many people in your life do you know? Would
I
you
don't
say?
know. Like over the course of a number of years, probably like freaking 50 or maybe 75.
Okay, so let's say you know 50 people. Of those
Mm-hmm.
50 people, how many people are you, like, actually confirmed? I'm not talking about like you think or you assume. How many of those people have you confirmed their chromosomal makeup, whether or not they are biologically male or biologically female?
Probably like, mm, or like 20. I don't know.
So only 40% of those people, you are for certain they are biologically male or biologically female.
Uh, yeah, yes.
Okay, so this once again completely destroys your point, because in that case,
How?
because in that case, how are you able to how are you able to use pronouns with the other 30 people whose biological sex you were not sure of?
Because this is what I said. I said pronouns are based off of biology. I never said that I base my pronoun usage solely off of what the person's biology is. That's what you keep misunderstanding. I
Yeah,
said pronouns are referential.
yeah,
They're based off of a fact
but what
that you can't
I'm
change.
but what I am demonstrating is that in the almost, I would say, 99% of time, or 99.9% of time, 99.99%
I
of
use a
time
pronoun.
in interactions with people, when we assign people
Okay.
pronouns, we are assigning those
Mm-hmm.
pronouns based off what the person we think looks like, what their gender expression is, how they dress,
Yes.
what we
Uh-huh.
think their gender expression is. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in
That
this
doesn't
case,
disprove anything.
in 99.99% of cases, we assign pronouns not based on biological sex.
But that doesn't mean pronouns aren't based off of biological sex. Just because we don't use pronouns exactly as exactly based off of what they're based off of doesn't mean that they aren't based off of what they're based off of. You understand?
No.
Just
I,
because
I, I
just
literally
because
just demonstrated
just
that. So
that
for
doesn't that
example,
doesn't demonstrate anything.
if I Google she, it comes up as used to refer to a woman.
And what is a woman?
Well, someone who identifies as a woman. I mean, we're talking about gender, right?
So therefore anyone can be a woman?
Yes.
So then what's the point of being a woman? What's the point of calling someone a woman if anyone can be a woman? And if there's nothing that actually defines that you're a woman except only what you feel on that particular day.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
then like now I'm asking you,
Yeah,
like what is the point of calling someone a woman?
That's I because they prefer it. Or it's the exact same way of why call someone she or her or he and him, because that's just what they prefer. Why call someone by a preferred nickname? Because that's what they prefer.
Yeah, but a name is subjective. Woman is objective. It's based off of being a biological female. It's based off of
No, Chibu,
biology and science.
Chibu,
What?
we've gone over this countless times. A woman and a female aren't, like, you understand that these two words
Yeah,
are not the same
they're
thing.
two different things, but
Yeah, okay, hang on,
being
hang on.
the gender woman is
Whoa.
based off of the biology female.
No, Chibu, because as we just went over,
Holy
there
shit.
are cases where there are females who do not identify as women. Right?
There are females that don't identify as women. So you're saying trans men?
Correct.
That doesn't mean anything. Just because what you feel is what you, like I said, being transgender is a personal choice. That doesn't mean anything to the established fact of the matter.
What is the established fact of the matter?
That a woman is someone with fallopian tubes, XX chromosomes, a uterus, a vagina. That's what a woman is, and that's all based off of biological, being a biological female. But then woman goes on to define so much more in the societal sphere. That's why we have gender.
Exactly. So you agree that
But gender isn't what you feel like.
So you were saying that a female and a woman are not necessarily the same thing.
Yes, they're not interchangeable.
Yes,
but being
I
a
agree.
woman is based off of being a biological female. You can't be a woman if you're not a biological female first.
Wait, no. Chibu, we keep going back to this, and you keep sort of like, okay, so here's my question. What is a woman in your eyes?
Very simple. The first things that make up a woman: fallopian tubes, XX chromosome.
So real quick.
Uterus.
So real quick.
All the markers of a biological female. That's the founding basis of what a woman is.
Chibu, let's calm down. You're getting triggered again, like in your answers. So real quick, Chibu, chill. Again, in this case, I asked you. So we just said that a female and a woman are not the same thing, and then I asked you, okay, what is a woman then? And the first thing you jump to is someone with XX chromosomes. I am having a very difficult time following your, like, this is what happened last time. But you agree, real quick.
You're not actually understanding what I'm saying.
Chibo, I don't think anyone understands what you're saying. But real quick, let me just try to get this out.
I mean, a lot of other people are saying it. I mean,
well, yeah, they all are completely.
Ben Shapiro's saying the same thing. Jordan Peterson's saying the same thing. Those guys are like, especially Jordan Peterson. He's a college professor. Like, I'm pretty sure he understands exactly what I'm saying.
Chibu, that was like, Chibu, I'm just saying, like, that was like the biggest, like, saying that, like, well, Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro agree with me. That was like the biggest self-own. Like, never do that again, please, for like your own sake. Like, that was awful.
You said that people don't understand. I'm telling you that literal college professors, guys that teach biology, and they teach.
Aren't there college professors who agree with me?
Sociology, nigga. Those are people that are literally pandering to the left.
Okay, so real quick,
You don't understand.
college professors who agree with you know what they're talking about. College professors who don't agree with you are pandering and are stupid.
No, college professors that agree with logic and clear science and data, those guys know what you're, and that's
Okay.
literally all I'm stating here.
Okay,
You don't have to
so
agree with me, but I'm stating the facts. And I mean, if you don't agree with the facts, then like what?
I personally am
On this
agreeing.
particular topic,
Chibu,
I'm stating exactly the facts.
Chibu, I am personally agreeing with the facts, but they are not on your side. So let me just
You,
let's try this once again. Do you agree that there are women who are not biologically female?
no, you can't be a woman if you're not biologically female.
Okay. So in this case, a woman and a female are the same thing.
A woman is based off of a female,
Chibu,
but the
listen,
two terms are
Chibu,
not
Chibu,
interchangeable.
Chibu, you keep kind of like let's just try like these yes or no's because like this is why I'm
Yeah,
trying to
a woman
demonstrate.
is a biological female.
Chibu. You agree? So we have discussed, and you said is so. Here, let's try this. Yes or no? Are female and woman interchangeable?
No,
Okay. They do not mean the same thing.
no, they don't mean the same thing.
Okay. Can you be a woman if you are not female?
No, you can't be a woman if you're
Okay,
not female.
Chibu, like, do you see where we're kind of running? Like, do you see where like the disconnect is? Where I ask you,
You're,
okay, you agree that a woman and a female are not the same thing, but then I ask you, what is a woman? And you said, well, they're a female.
no, you're failing to what you like fail to understand is the connection between a what a woman is and what a biological female is. They're not interchangeable, but being a woman, one of the determining factors for being a woman is that you have to be a biological female.
So
So so
there
you
is
can't be a woman if you're not a biological female.
so in
But
that
they're not
case,
interchangeable because
but
a
doesn't
woman
but
defines other things.
but if I say, hey, this person's a woman, that is basically calling them a biological female, no?
That's implying that you're biological female.
Well,
Yes.
no. In your view, it's not implying. In your view, it is. Again, it's like a woman as a. In order to be a woman, you have to be a biological female. So if I say this person is a woman, that is denoting them as a biological female.
Yes.
Okay. So when you say they aren't the same thing, can you give me of an example of a woman who is not a biological female?
A woman that isn't a biological female,
Mm-hmm.
like that can exist. You need to
Okay.
be a biological female to be
So
a woman.
okay. So in this case, but you also agree. But you also agree. So you have to be a biological female to be a woman. But you also
Uh-huh.
agree that can you be a man? Can you identify as a man? Can you be a man if you are a biological female?
No.
Okay, so I just what's very frustrating to you right now is that
Bro,
if
you're
you can
you're
ask
missing the connection so bad. You're
no
confusing yourself.
Chibu, I'm not. If you can look
I
at the chat.
promise you, dude. I
Everyone
promise.
agrees. Everyone agrees.
Dude,
When
that
we're
echo chamber
talking
is not
about
the facts.
when we're talking about there is no case where you would identify someone as a woman and that person is not a biological female.
I mean, you can come up to me and express as a woman, right? And then I'll be like, sure. I mean, you look like a woman. I guess you're a woman, sure.
But
But I mean,
if you found out that person was biologically male, they would no longer be a woman.
no, they wouldn't because now I have new
Okay.
information that
Oh
shows
my
that you
god.
are not a woman. I mean, when new information comes to light, you usually like change your opinions or your stance on certain topics. Am I wrong?
So when are you? So here's a good question. Ivar put it in the chat. When are you a biological female but not a woman?
How can you be? When are you a biological female but not a woman?
Yeah. So what is a case of someone who is biologically female but they are not a woman?
A biological female is not is not like an entity or a person. It's a, how do I say it? It's like, it's a principle. It's a, like a scientific fact, right? That tells you that these organisms constitute a biological, would constitute the makeup of a biological female. But a biological female isn't actually a person. The person would be a woman. You do like understand it better now? The person is a
No.
woman,
No.
right? And
Chibu.
what makes them a woman is a biological
Chibu, you're literally
bro.
saying
Am I
like I
crazy? Like,
Chibu, I'm literally saying I'm asking you.
mm,
I'm asking these questions in succession. Is being a female and being a woman the same thing? And you said no. And then I ask you, is there a so under what circumstance would they be not would there be a case where they would not be interchangeable? And you said like and you don't give me a case. You're just saying like what I'm saying is like I understand what you're saying. I understand like what you're trying to get at. But what I'm saying is that you
I'm
are
sure you
not
do, bro.
making no, I do. But what I'm saying is that you are not making any fundamental descriptive difference between female equals woman in your view. That is
Because
how and woman equals female, correct? In your view.
no, they're not equal to each other. Because a woman, that's what I'm saying. The woman describes something else. It's called gender for a reason.
Okay, real quick,
A
hang on. Whoa,
woman,
Chibu, real quick. Hang on, real quick. Let's stop right
but it's
there.
still based off of
Real quick,
biology.
Stop, real quick. Let's just real quick. No, because this is important. You just said it perfectly.
Okay.
When we say woman, we are describing something else aside that does not have to do with biology, correct?
It's based off of biology.
Okay, so
It's based off of a science.
so okay,
It's not
okay.
just
So
based off
aside,
of
so put
feelings.
the biology aside for a second. In the case of woman, what denotes whether someone is a woman? Aside from your, aside from their biology,
You said I should put the biology aside.
you just said that a
Okay.
woman is based partially on biology. What? So aside from that, putting that
Yes.
aside, what other things would denote someone as a woman?
Well, there are the usual um, gender roles that go along with being a woman in society, like the usual behavior that goes along with being like feminine characteristics in society. That's usually what defines like it plays a part in defining what a woman is,
Okay, so
right?
real quick, so
And there are other
here
things
let's
in like
just
the societal
so
sphere.
let's just list. So what are like? Give me a couple of those. So what are the things that denote someone's the woman gender?
Probably femininity.
Okay, but that's just like saying the same. But like I'm talking about like actual specific things, like behaviors, actions. Like what are some of those things?
Being feminine, that's
Yeah,
a behavior.
but
That's a
being
behavioral pattern.
yeah, but no, but being feminine is like that. Like this goes back to the whole reject modernity thing, where being masculine is not wearing a skirt. And then I say, what about Scottish men who wear kilts? And they're like, well, that's different. So when we're
That's your
talking,
culture.
yeah, but when we're talking about femininity, that is based off a particular culture's view on what they view as femininity. So you're not really saying anything there. I'm saying in this culture, in this society, what is denoted as femininity?
Um,
What are behaviors? What are
ex-
actions?
expressing as a woman, having a high pitched voice.
Okay,
Let's
awesome.
see what else. Uh, the usual tendency to opt for flights, in the fight or flight response, right? So you opt for flight over fight. Um, what else? Being more nurturing, being tending to be more emotional. This isn't like static. This is tending because there's
Yep.
some women that are
Yep. I am.
more
I agree.
that are more exactly. So let's just clear that up,
Okay.
right? So these are some of the things, not all, because like I can't remember them all off head right now, but there's just some things that denotes in at least
What
U.S.
about
called
their what about their
society
what about
being
their fashion? What about their fashion?
yeah, sure, skirts,
Skirts,
long hair,
long hair,
makeup.
makeup. Okay. Okay. Great. So these are things that, and again, I understand what you're saying. That things like
Hmm.
having a high pitched voice or the tendency to be like maybe have a preference for a certain fashion. Yes, that those
Hmm.
are related to certain biological factors. So this is the
Hmm.
question I'm about to ask you.
Okay.
Let's say you have a biological man. This
Hmm.
biological man has a high pitched voice when they are confronted with some sort of, scary situation, they run, they do not fight. They tend to
Hmm.
be more nurturing than their other male
Yes.
peers. They are far
Very
more
nice.
emotional erratic than their other male peers. And they
Very
have long
good.
hair, they wear makeup, and they like wearing skirts and dresses.
Perfect.
So is this person a woman?
No, you're still a man
Why?
because you're a biological male.
Motherfucker. Chibu. Oh my god. Chibu.
Dude,
Like, this is
it's
what I'm
based
taught.
off of
Oh my god. We went
you
through that
can
whole
you can
thing.
you can you can try and say that it's interchangeable and
Oh.
not interchangeable, but even if you eliminate all the other aspects that make you a man, at the end of the day there's still that science that your gender is based off of. So you can't change your gender just because you've changed all the other variables, because there's still
So,
this one constant that tells you that, look man, you're a guy. Like, it doesn't matter what you think you are or what, like, you are a man. You saying that you're a woman or you're trans, that's fine. That's cool. That's an individual decision. It doesn't actually mean that you are that thing. I can
so,
think I'm a millionaire, but I can look in my bank account and there's like $10 in there. It
so
doesn't matter.
in this case, if I'm looking at a person and I need to determine if whether or not they are a man or not, whether a man or a woman, it doesn't matter what their voice sounds like, whether they run or fight, whether they are more nurturing, whether they are more or less emotional, and what kind of fashion they wear. None of that matters, because the only thing that matters when determining whether a person is a man or a woman is based off their biology.
Well, of course, if I look at your gender expression and they express as a woman, then
Chibu,
I will go
Chibu,
along
real
that they're
quick,
a
Chibu,
woman.
Chibu, real
I'm
quick.
just trying
Let
to
me.
clear that up. It's part of the
Let,
answer.
no, it's not. What I am asking
Bruh.
you is you just. So here, let's just try this again. You just went
Hmm.
through a whole spiel saying that, well, saying someone is a female and saying they are a woman are not the same thing, because someone being a woman is not just, while it is in part made up and influenced by biology, there are other factors that go into what we consider when we say someone is a woman, such as the sound of their voice, their emotional tendencies, whether they're nurturing or caring, and their fashion. And then I
Hmm.
asked you, in a case where you have a person who is all of those things, every single behavior they conduct and every single thing about their appearance says to society that they are a woman,
Hmm.
all of that is trumped by their chromosomes.
All of that is trumped by your biology. Like I said, biology is the basis. It's the foundation, right? Like, how are you going to base an entire thing based off of just everyone's individual feelings? So what is that thing? Then what's the point of gender? Because at that point
So,
we have 7.5 billion different genders. So what's the point of having gender? Might
well,
as well
wait,
just throw it in the trash,
wait,
right?
are you, wait, hang on. Are you a gender abolitionist? Do you think we should just get
No,
rid
I'm
of
not.
gender Whoa, wait, bro. Did we come to an epiphany?
I'm not a
Are you a
no,
gender
no.
abolitionist now?
look,
Hell yeah,
look,
brother. Let's go.
Oh my god, dude, stop it. Stop,
Sorry,
stop,
sorry,
stop.
sorry, sorry. I'm fucking with
Stop.
you. Go
Look,
ahead.
what I'm saying is you said that gender is based off of how someone feels, right?
No, what I am saying is that when it comes to gender,
Just
when we're talking, so like just here we go. We just described this
no,
with you. Hang on,
you
hang
said
on,
it with your own
Chibu, Chibu,
mouth.
Chibu. I'm explaining it. I'm explaining it. If I'm contradicting myself, you can point it out.
All
What
right.
I said was that when we're determining gender in our society, we usually use very arbitrary factors based off of, like you said, like their voice, their behavior, and their clothing. Well, now we live in a society where that behavior is not. It might there might be a tendency that like, hey, this behavior usually corresponds with biological females, and this behavior corresponds with biological males. However, as time goes on, as gender roles become more less and less strict, we see that there is a much larger overlap when it comes to said behavior. We see biological men wearing dresses and, liking makeup, and we see biological women, like liking like MMA and, like wearing, I don't know, like cargo shorts. I don't fucking know. But so in this case, the entire concept of how we identify gender is starting to sort of fade away, right? Because now we see
No.
people. Well, no, because now we see. Because again, if you look back in the 50s, the vast, 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 vast majority of biological females would look and act a certain way, and the vast, vast,
Mm-hmm.
vast, vast, vast majority of biological males would look and act a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Today, that is far from the case because now we have biological men who, like, so for example, I'm a biological male.
Mm-hmm.
I box, I lift, I like whiskey.
Nice, nice,
I
nice.
also like to watch The Bachelor. I cry at sad movies. And I
Okay.
think that puppies are like the cutest fucking thing in the world. So
Uh-huh.
just going off of my behavior, if I here, let's do an example. If I gave you
Okay.
those things of my behavior, what would you
Mm-hmm.
denote? What would you think my gender is?
Well, I wouldn't be able to derive your gender
Exactly.
unless I had your biology,
Uh,
unless I knew what
oh,
your biology was. I wouldn't be able to
oh my
like
god. Oh my god.
I wouldn't
She-
are you saying I should just guess your gender based off of only those?
No.
Because
What I'm saying is that you can't tell. So whatever a person says their gender is, you should just go with that.
that's by like in speaking, but that's not what actually gender is.
What is gender?
Gender is based off of it's definitely certainly not whatever the person says it is or feels that it is because it has to be based off of science.
So it's gender is based off is your gender is whatever your biological sex is.
Yeah, man, woman based off of male, female respectively,
Your
but not
gender
interchangeable.
your gender is whatever your biological sex is. If you are a biological male, you are a man. That is your gender. If you're a biological female, you are a woman. That is your gender.
Yes.
Okay, good. Chibu, we're gonna call it. That was a long
Bruh,
roundabout. I
you're
think we
you're you're
covered.
you're misunderstanding the
I
connection, dude.
I must be that
You're
that
missing
it.
the connection.
I think I definitely
You're
am.
way missing the connection. And
I
like you're
think
not even you just need to try to see it because
yeah.
I'm
Okay.
telling you, man,
No. Well,
it's
you know.
pretty simple, honestly.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
I really don't know how else to explain it. Like I've tried, bro.
You have. I'm just not smart enough to see it. Chibu, thank you very much for coming on a second time. Maybe there'll be a third.
That's
I don't
crazy,
know.
bro.
Yeah,
Hey, man,
man.
maybe who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we can. Maybe I'll finally get it on the third try.
Or maybe I will. Shit, if I'm lucky.
I mean, if you stop listening to Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro, you'll probably be better than you
Dude,
would
I
before.
don't. I literally don't even like listen to them to construct my points. I literally just go along with what I've been taught in school and what I've done. I've
So
researched.
real,
I've done on
so
my own.
so real quick. So you just said that your opinions are based off of what your teachers say.
what my book says, what my textbooks say,
Yeah, but your
and
textbook was
I go
written.
and fact check those.
Who is your textbook written by?
Certainly not by my teachers. It says who it's written by on the front covers.
Uh-huh.
Dude,
And in that case,
I'm in my
and
last grade of high school, dude. I wasn't like I'm not in like this era of teaching where I guess the teachers write the books, but it's literally like college professors that wrote the math and the science books that I used, and I
but
still
didn't
have them. I can go take
but
pictures
didn't
and
we
send them to you.
didn't you say earlier that there are some college professors who are just pandering to the left or the right? So how can you trust their opinions?
That's why you fact check what you see in the book and better understand. You have to go and do your own research. That's the whole point of homework, is it not?
Who's doing the fact checking?
I am. I'm looking on Google. I'm looking multiple sources.
Who's
They
writing
they
who's
they
writing the articles on Google?
they literally teach you fact checking and cross referencing and how to know which websites are reputable or not reputable in like fifth grade.
What if the person teaching that course has a left wing bias?
Then I can always go and do my own research at home, like I should with schoolwork, and then I can see left wing sites and right wing sites, and I can make a decision. I'm not a kid anymore, bro. Like I know which one is which, and I know which one is in the centrist position and which one makes most sense based off of science and the science that we know to be true, the facts, rather than just opinions and basically hearsay.
Well, I can't argue with that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
Chibu.
it.
Yeah, man. Thanks again for coming on. Maybe we'll talk another time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Stay safe, bro.
Guys, we did it. Like that was, you know what? We're getting closer. I'm still not big brained enough to understand what he's saying. But maybe on the third try. Maybe we'll try it a third time, and maybe his intelligence will sort of like osmosis Jones onto me, and I will finally understand it. God, that was awful. I thought it was gonna go better. It started off better, but then it just kind of devolved. It was weird because like we were like, it's like, yeah, okay, let's just leave all those bad arguments from the last one behind. And then it was like, and then it just went right back into every single argument, and they gave the exact same answer every single time. Yeah. So to go back to what I think he was saying about like when he's saying like, oh, you're taking my opinions and then bringing to the extremes. So what he's talking about is the Socratic method. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. It's not anything fancy. It's literally it's literally like just saying like if I said hey, all lawyers are bastards, and then someone said, well here's an example of a lawyer who's not a bastard, so how does that make your statement true? And then that person who said the statement will have to say, oh, well, actually, maybe my statement was not true, and I'll have to I'll restructure it, and maybe say most lawyers are bastards. So the problem that, and he kind of touched upon it at the end there when he was talking about, I know the difference. If you think, if anyone out there, if you think that you are unbiased, if you think that you will have the objective take on a situation every single time, you are stupid. Like when we're talking about like trying to be objective, when we're talking about that, what we mean is there is no such thing as an objective person. Every person is filled with emotions and biases and experiences that if they just go with what they feel like, if what they think the answer is, then they will just go with their gut. But that isn't being objective. That's just because that can vary wildly. So for example, if you're a parent and your kid comes out as gay, depending on your experiences, depending on your emotions, depending on your biases, that may be a thing that's, this is horrible, this is a bad thing, we cannot do this. Or for another parent, it might be, oh, cool, like that's a good thing. Like this is great. Like yeah, cool. I'm glad you can open up to us. That's based off of the parents' biases and their upbringing and what they feel about gay people and what they've heard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The objective. So again, that's like the emotional. That's a subjective. What is the objective? The objective is that if a kid comes out as gay, what do we objectively know about that? It just means that this person, this kid, instead of liking girls, like most boys do, he likes boys. So what does that objectively tell us? And the answer is nothing. It's not a. It's like okay, cool, chill. And that is the take that we should take towards it in society, in my opinion. Because when we look at the biological facts, it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with being gay. There's nothing immoral about I mean, compared to depending on some religious people, but like, there's nothing like objectively wrong with being gay. It doesn't cause anyone harm. It doesn't encroach on anyone's rights. It doesn't prevent other people from expressing their freedoms. So yeah, then just being gay should be chill, and we should just act it as such. So in that case, we are forming an objective opinion, an objective take, regardless of our subjective take, how we feel. What was happening in that conversation was that he was going off of, how do I feel? How do I feel about it? And this is kind of how a lot of people who are transphobes, sort of, or people who are against trans rights, they can't actually like verbalize why it's wrong. They just it just feels wrong to them. It's based on their emotion. It feels wrong. They might not even know why it feels wrong. Yeah, you could point book. They could end with a trans man. See that? Bam, like right there. Book. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. I said a statement, and then book says, oh, well, actually, what about this case? And then I go, oh, okay, yeah, actually, let's I have to reconsider that now because that's a good point. So in this case with Chibu, the reason I was bringing up scenarios wasn't to bring it to some like ridiculous extreme, was to, okay, you have this belief that we base pronoun usage based off of biological sex. Oh no, hi Chibu, you're in the chat. I said being trans is personal. I have nothing to do with it, and I don't actually have to go along with it. But Chibu, we cleared that up in like the first like 2 minutes of the chat, which is like, yes, you personally do not have to respect someone's pronouns, and in that case, people will call you an asshole and a transphobe, and they rightfully so, because you are being an asshole and being a transphobe. But then we went into discussing your logic behind it. And the logic was completely horrible. Like, so, for example, again, if the argument is that, well, we base pronouns based off of biological sex, and then my response was, well, what about someone who was intersex? If someone is intersex, they are not strictly biologically male or biologically female. So what pronouns do we use to identify them as? And he got upset, and he never really answered the question. He said they had a birth defect. He said that they were a small. This is also how you know that like when like a person doesn't know what they're talking about. When I asked him this question, because the problem is that what the answer is, well, if I'm an intersex person, the pronouns I will address them with will be based off of what I think their gender is, based off their gender expression. But if he said that, then that would sort of be defeating his own point. Because if I select the pronouns I use to identify someone based off their gender expression, then that goes against the idea that we identify people with pronouns based off their biological sex. But he couldn't admit that, because then he would be proving himself wrong. So that's why he said, oh, well, they have a birth defect. Or it's like, oh, well, they're a small portion of the population. Neither of which have anything to do with, I don't know what either of those things had anything to do with anything. And you brought up outliers and people with birth defects to try and deconstruct my argument. Yes, Chibu, deconstructing an argument is how you put up... Chibu, this is what fact checking is. When someone says something, I said that I would use pronouns based off expression. Then what are we arguing about, Chibu? That is the entire thing. The entire thing. Yeah, good point, Glumbar. There's another blind spot. I don't know book's gender. How do I talk about book without knowing their gender? You just ask them, what gender are you? It's like, oh, well, I'm a woman and I go by she, her pronouns. Great, I'll use those. But pronouns themselves are actually based off biological fact. Okay, let's try this again. If I Google woman, if I Google she, it says used to refer to a woman. So so when I say she, it says in the dictionary used to refer to a woman. Right? So in this case, that depends on, okay, then what is a woman? How do I identify a woman? And it's like, well, that is based off of their behavior and their look and how they look. Now, in Chibu's mind, he kind of kept going back and forth about, well, biological sex. I don't really understand. I don't think he ever understood what he was saying. Like, I feel like I made him contradict himself like 8 times in a row and he still didn't get it. When we're talking about female and being a woman, we're talking about 2 completely separate things. Now, there is an overlap. The vast majority of biological females would, in our society, fit the gender role of a woman based off of what we perceive a woman to be, based off the things that he said about like behavior, interest, look, long hair, certain, soft skin and, long, like shit like that. However, the issue with that is that there are cases, and as time goes on, we are seeing more and more cases of biological male and biological female people not attributing to that behavior. So if this is what I tried to express to Chibu. If a woman, like in terms of gender role, is based off of behavior and looks, and a biological male assigns themselves to what's the word I'm looking for? Displays that behavior and those looks, wouldn't that person be a woman? Because we're basing a woman off of how we perceive them in society. But then Chibu said, no, it's based off their biology. But then he said that they're not the same thing. Chibu, a woman is in part a bio. So this is sort of the problem, Chibu, is like when you say like these little like weasel words, like in part, it's based on, mostly. What you're kind of doing is like, because you know that if you say a woman is a biological female, you're just like, you know that like that can be disproven. So what you say is like, well, they're related. Like no one denies that they're related. But so again, this is what I said to Chibu. All right-handed, so this is why I used the right hand, like the right left-handed example. In the vast majority of cases, humans are right-handed, right? However, there are some cases where humans are left-handed, right? But we would never say that being right-handed is a essential part of being a human, right? The vast majority of people are right-handed. There are some that are left-handed. but they're all human. We do not denote right-handed people are not more human than left-handed people, right? The vast majority of people who identify as men, or actually, it's better to say it, the vast majority of biological males on this earth are attracted to biological females. However, there are some biological males who are attracted to biological males, right? Okay. Does that mean that those biological males are less so than the biological males who are attracted to biological females? No. Because we do not say someone is a more or less of a male or man based off their sexual proclivity. I mean, some people do, but those people suck. So the reason I said that was, what Chiba was saying is that in the vast majority of cases, biological females identify and take on the gender role of women, and that is true. However, there are some cases where a biological female will not identify as a woman and will not ascribe to the gender roles or appearance of what we perceive as a woman. And that may or may not mean that they're trans. There are plenty of people who identify as women who, if you were to look at based on their behavior and looks, you would not think they were women. Again, the example that I used in high school, when I met the person who identifies as a woman, but based off their look and their behavior, I did not think they were. Because of this, this denotes that being a woman and being a biological female are not the same thing, which Chibu admitted. But then I asked him, okay, so what is a case where someone can be a biological female but not be a woman? And then he said, well, that is impossible. It's, oh God, okay. Oh, that was awful. I'm sorry, I got heated there at the end. I didn't mean to be condescending. I did not mean to be condescending. But it was just very frustrating that we started off. He even admitted in comments, it was like, you know what? I was really cringy last debate. I'm not going to go with any of those arguments. And I was like, cool. And we get back on, and we're taking it point by point. And then he starts making all the same arguments, and I deliver all the same counter arguments, and then he gives all the exact same answers. And then I really tried to be like, man, can we try and just, like, do you see what you're saying? And then it just brick wall. Like, well, no, Sam, it's not even that based on that doesn't mean that doesn't. What does that mean? What does based on mean? It being a woman is based off your biology. Well, not necessarily, because there are plenty of people in our society who they look like and they act like what we perceive as a woman, but they are biologically male. So in that case, their biological sex is not based on, their status, their behavior and look is not based on their biological sex. The difference is the societal sphere and how we've defined woman based off how, oh God. Oh my God. Sam, you have two big brain ideas he can't comprehend. No. Oh my God. Chibu, do you want to hop back? No, I shouldn't do that. That would be bad. Chibu, because when you say based on, being a woman is based on your biology. But then you say they're not. But then we asked, okay, well, in some cases that wouldn't. If it's based on, in some cases that wouldn't be the case, because there are people in our society who look and act like quote unquote women, but are biologically male. So in that case, their behavior and their look is not based on their biology, right? Oh God. I think he's like so dug deep into this. Like, I mean, he listened. He said that he literally unironically referenced like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. Like, that's just like that was a layup. I was like, bro. Oh, book. I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. Chibu, this is what we're talking about. It is biology isn't all that a woman is, but it is the determining factor for what a woman is. Okay. I didn't even go at the easy layup when he was saying it's like, well, women have uteruses, and I'm like, well, what about biological females who don't have uteruses? Are they not women? Chibu, is a biological female who was born without a uterus a woman? Let's see what he answers. Chibu, is a biological female who is born without a uterus a woman? Okay, maybe he's not going to answer. So we're going long. So here's my last word on this. And this, I will challenge anyone. They have other biological markers that tell us they're a biological female. So, Chibu, what about in the case of a person who has no biological markers that they are biologically female, but they still are? Ah, oh, thank you, Sam. You put it so well. You put it way better than I did. If one thing is the only determining factor for what another thing is, they are the same thing. Thank you. Fuck. Chibu, we'll try again. So what I think Chibu was trying to get at, I'm going to try to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to be very good faith here. I'm going to try to be. What Chibu was saying is that in our current society, when you look at someone, or if someone requests certain pronouns, because you can't tell their biological sex. Wait, Chibu, who are you responding to? The book? Sam really is. Sam is coming through. Sam is coming through clutch. Sam should have been in that debate. He would have. It would have been over in like 15 minutes. Good job, Sam. Because if the other thing describes other things, then it is not the same as the first thing. I have no idea what that statement means. I feel bad. Chibu, let's stop picking on Chibu in chat. Okay, this is my final word on this. What Chibu was getting at was that in the case where you do not know someone's biological makeup. So let's say Chibu is correct. He's not, but let's say he is correct in that someone's pronouns are based off of, are based rock solid off of their biology. So if someone is biologically male, we would use he and him pronouns. If someone's biologically female, we would use her and she or whatever. However, if you are in a class or you're in public or you're with people and you don't know what their biology is, you might be able to guess it based off of their appearance or how they look or how they sound, and you may or may not be right. But because you cannot be sure, they are Chibu. In that case, they're denoting your entire Chibu. In that case, you are like disproving your entire thing. Yes, in some cases, based off of gender, well, because there are no concrete determining factors as to what determines someone's gender, yeah, so whatever they identify as. Because as I said, Chibu, if there is a man who has a high-pitched voice and wears dresses and and wears makeup, well, that person's still a man because of their biology. It's like, okay, so what gender are they? Right? Like, this is what I'm talking about. If it all comes back to biology, then gender and biology are they're interchangeable. They mean the same thing. And then you're going to say, no, they're not. And one concrete factor is their biological makeup. So okay, we're done. We've tried this. But then I ask you, so what are other factors that make up a woman? And then you say A, B, and C. And it's like, okay, well, if a biological man is A, B, and C, does that make them a woman? And you said no, because of their biology. Fuck. Well, that's sort of the thing, Ivor. When we're talking about gender, the entire issue is that our conception of gender is so completely fucked and so completely confusing and so vague and unspecific that is why most people are kind of getting away with gender as a thing. So, for example, in our society, the women as a gender tend to wear makeup and dresses and have long hair. Okay, well, why was it then that 200 or 300 years ago, with the founding fathers, the men wore wigs and wore makeup and wore heels? So the problem is that the determining factor, so like to your point, to your question, Ivar, when we're determining what gender means, we usually use a lot of arbitrary characteristics that may or may not be based on biology. Because again, it's like, oh, okay, in our society, women, so biological females who identify as women, tend to act this way. But then if there are men who act that way, then what does it even mean to denote that, oh, if biological females who identify as women, if they are on average more emotional than biological males who identify as men, if we have biological males who identify as men who are overly emotional, does that mean they're women? Does that not mean they're women? What does that mean? To your question, I read this, like, the reason I'm sounding like a complete idiot is because when we're talking about gender, we really don't really have a grasp on what gender means. We don't really know. We used to think we did. We used to kind of use it interchangeably with sex. But now, as we've gone on and we're kind of realizing, like, as gender roles are being broken down, as we're seeing a lot of people just sort of like, bend and shape and mold them, Roman Catholicism is based off the Holy Bible, but the Holy Bible is not based the same as Catholic. What? What? That is not a good hypothetical. That is a horrible hypothetical. What? Roman Catholicism is based off the Holy Bible. No, but the Holy Bible is not the same as Catholic. What? Yeah, but Chibu, if I said that, if I showed a version of Roman Catholicism and it didn't follow the Bible, would you then say, well, it's not Roman Catholicism? Yes, Chibu. So what you're saying is that no matter what a biological male does, okay, I don't even know. I'm trying to follow your things. But so again, sorry, Ivar, to your question, the reason that when people try to define gender, they usually like bumble around like an idiot is because as time has gone on, as we've seen, as we really put our concept of gender under a microscope, we've kind of realized that it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't really mean anything concrete. We can see trends between people. Oh, these people who identify as women tend to act this way, and these people who identify as men tend to act this way. But just because they tend to doesn't really mean anything. And this kind of goes back to like what Chibu was saying about like, well, most people do. Well, in most cases, well, they're an exception. Well, so what? Again, the metaphor I used was that, hey, when we talk about someone being human, most humans are right-handed. And there are some, but a small minority of humans who are left-handed. But that doesn't mean that left-handed, because we don't denote whether someone is human based off of whether they're right-handed or left-handed. This is what we're talking, like that's sort of like how the same thing with gender is. We don't denote someone's gender. We can see trends, like, okay, so most people who identify as men act this way, and most people who identify as women act this way. Okay, but that doesn't really tell us anything. What does that tell us? It might be based off. It might be based off their biology. Okay, but that doesn't mean anything. That you can't say it's like, okay, well then women do this. Well, no, because there are some women who don't do this, and there are some men who do this. Why would I base my beliefs and views off of exceptions? Because Chibu, if you have a belief and there are exceptions, then it's not a concrete belief. If if A equals B, but there are if the rule is A equals B, but there are exceptions, then the rule is not A equals B. The whole point of pointing out exceptions is to show that your concrete belief or rule is not as concrete as you once thought. It's like Chibu, the rule I before E except after C, there are more exceptions to that rule than there are words that follow that rule. Right? So in that case, I before E except after C, as a rule, doesn't make any sense. You should never say that ever again because it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply. But here's the thing. Even if the exceptions weren't the majority, even if there were a million words that said I before E except after C, and there was one word that did not follow that rule, well then it's not a rule, right? Oh, well, it applies in the vast majority of cases. So that means it's not a rule because there are exceptions, because there are cases where this rule does not apply. This is why trying to apply these sort of like very hardcore logical, mathematical almost principles to things that are not like strictly logical and mathematical don't make any sense. There are two genders. Intersex is an exception. Chiba, you understand that there are like there are thousands of years of evidence of societies recognizing third genders, right? Like I know you're in high school, but like have you only read Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro? Is that why? Like there are two genders maybe in our society, but what about all the societies that recognize other genders? What about other societies that didn't recognize gender at all? Chibu, you're Malden, man. I'm Malding, actually. I can't even argue. I'm the one who's getting triggered. But Chibu, the fact that intersex, okay, Chibu, then what gender is an intersex person? Wait, no, hang on. Chibu, there are two genders. Intersex is an exception. No, it's not. Because intersex is based off biology. We've already determined that gender and sex are not the same thing. Okay, we're done. I can't. I'm so done. Okay, and we don't use those society gender definitions to define gender. Okay, but Chibu, if two different societies define gender in different ways, then that means gender doesn't really mean anything. If a million different societies all define gender a different way, then maybe in one particular society it might mean in that context something, but objectively gender doesn't mean anything, because if something can mean a million different things, it doesn't really mean anything, right? Uh okay, we should stop arguing with not chat, just Chibu. Yeah, Ivor, I was like, it sounded like Chibu there was like, hey, let's just get rid of gender totally. I'm like, fuck yeah, bro, let's do it. No more gender roles, no more toxic masculinity, no more pressure to act a certain way. Fuck yeah, bro, that would be tight. Are you a man or woman? Like, who gives a shit? Objectively, in our society, gender is based off biology. Oh shit. Okay, I'm gonna call it. I'll be in Discord. I'll probably hop in chat if anyone's around. But I'm gonna hop off this. Chibu, if you ever want to come on for round 3, I guess we can try again. But if it evolves into the same thing, I think it's beating a dead horse at this point. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Good night, y'all. Have a lovely evening. Yeah. Good night. Oh.